Oh yeah, lots of good interviews. Starting off
Yes.
with Clay Gentry from Transportation Insight. It's the first day of the third quarter today. What's going to happen in the second half of 2021? Roll the dice. Nobody knows.
I think Clay may have some insights to it, though.
You're right.
Clay, yeah, he's president of Managed Transportation at Transportation Insights. Clay, how are you this morning?
I'm great. How y'all doing this morning?
Doing great, doing great. Let's
Pretty
jump into
good.
this, Clay. Let's talk about it's halftime, right? What's happening coming up in the second half of this game here? It's pretty exciting this year, no?
Yeah, no doubt the first half has been pretty crazy, and it's going to be a wild ride to see what the second half holds for us, and kind of how this peak season looks going into Q3. And so, not lots of speculation related to kind of how supply and demand ends up shaking out, and what capacity will end up holding for us.
And so you guys at Transportation Insight just put out your Q3 transportation forecast. Talk to us a little bit about what's contained in that. What are you guys looking at as far as where things are going from the capacity side, the environment side, and even the rate side?
Yeah, so we just finished our Q3 update from all of our experts across each of the modes of transportation: parcel, truckload, and LTL. And as we look at what to expect here in Q3, we kind of analyze things and look at it from a supply perspective, and then certainly speculate in terms of what the demand side might hold for us as we look forward. And so, on the supply side, really across all three modes, capacity is going to continue to be pretty constrained as we go into Q3, right? Certainly, truck orders are up. However, fulfillment of those orders and new trucks coming online is slower as a result of a lot of the manufacturing challenges that exist across the auto industry as well as the truck industry related to parts. And so that, along with driver shortages, are still real. And so capacity for drivers in the truckload segment, as well as in the parcel and LTL segment, are keeping carriers from really being able to make meaningful adjustments to adding supply or adding capacity to the marketplace. And so when you look at what's happening on the demand side related to consumer spending and kind of the behaviors that we've seen this year post-pandemic, and kind of speculate what that might mean for Q3, it really sets up for what might be a really crazy third quarter as we go into the retail season, as we go into a high volume season with limited supplies. And so, prepare to see perhaps more embargoes taking place on the LTL side and limited capacity. Prepare to see extended transit times across the LTL providers as well as the parcel providers. And truckload capacity is going to continue to be very tight, not only for direct shippers, but as some of that truckload capacity is used to support line haul in the parcel and LTL networks.
Clay, I'm interested. How much weight do you put into the Maritime and what's going on there with the Yantian shutdown that is now starting to, it's released a little bit there, and they're trying to get that backlog of containers moving. And you've got Home Depot getting their own ship. It's better to spend $150,000 a day on a ship than it is to have empty shelves come holiday season, right? And so you're looking at this, and those pressures could be really, really high on, like what you're saying, limited capacity. Are you looking at that? Has things changed a little bit as Yantian kind of eases a little bit, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, certainly, we're looking at that not only from just what that means from a capacity perspective, but also what that means from a balance standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you
Yeah.
have the Asian market free up, containers start to move again, perhaps some of that backlog work its way out, perhaps we see a very significant impact to the carrier networks as we see a proportionate increase in demand on the West Coast, right? So
Right.
it's going to impact the intermodal market, certainly the over-the-road market, and perhaps shift more, capacity out that way. The part that's a little different this year is that it's not like there's suppressed rates anywhere, right? So it's not like there's going to be a big imbalance of rates on the West Coast versus other parts of the country. And so you're going to have to see those rates even come to, well above historical highs to actually pull capacity out there onto the West Coast.
So we talk a lot about building a flexible and diverse supply chain and network of people in your supply chain to kind of handle these massive disruption events and handle this increased capacity issues pretty much everywhere on the entire freight network. Talk to me a little bit about if you don't have that supply chain built. What is your advice so far of getting this and getting it in place before Q3 completely overwhelms you?
Yeah, and it's a little bit tough, right? I mean, we're already this late. If you don't have a diverse set of carriers already in place, and you don't move very quickly to put that in place, it might be too late to actually react once you get into Q3. And so, at this point in time, encouraging shippers to make sure you've got a diverse set of providers that are in place to support you not only in the contract scenarios, but also in the spot quote scenarios. As well, do everything that you can to be as flexible to make yourself a favored shipper, right? In terms of flexibility on loading times, flexibility on unloading times, and turning trucks as quickly as possible. So to the extent that you're, maybe a shipper that has little flexibility and not necessarily an easy location to load or deliver to, that's not going to serve you well when you're actually trying to secure and entice other carriers to service your locations.
Yeah, so Clay, we talk about the outbound tender rejections and the tightness of capacity and the volumes, et cetera, and we see the outbound tender rejections, except for the seasonal bump here for the 4th of July, have been kind of loosening, right? And we can see that the contracted rates in truckload have been rising, which makes sense. People are, the carriers are sticking to those routing guides. They're honoring those routing guides because they're getting that money that they deserve, really, to pull this freight. When we talk about LTL in the middle, how do shippers guarantee that type of stuff or keep themselves away from those embargoes, whether intended or unintended embargoes, that could really get bad this fall? I would imagine with e-commerce and parcels going to pick up getting into the high season, and you're trying to increase your inventory levels, and so truckload's going to be high. That middle ground LTL's got no valve for things to go, right? They're going to get squeezed. How do shippers prepare for something like that?
Yeah, in terms of preparing for things along those lines, it's making sure you've got a very good network of regional providers, leveraging regionals as strong as you possibly can, diversifying your network as much as possible so that, as one carrier may have constrained capacity and place an embargo perhaps in your region, you have some other outlets to be able to turn to.
And so I really like that idea of being flexible with your expectations from a shipper. You can't have these firm set in stone. This is the way that we've always done it in this type of market. Talk to me about the importance of changing your expectations as a consumer too when it comes to maybe that parcel side. You've got to have the anticipation that, hey, not everything that I want is going to be delivered to me the way that it used to be. As a shipper, as a carrier, how can you kind of manage your consumer expectations, but also not set them up for disappointment when you can't deliver?
Yeah, and so, for me, when I think about consumer expectations, or at least managing expectations on the receiver side, there's two aspects of it. One is delivering, with accuracy to estimated transit times. And in the market that we're in right now, those estimated transit times are lengthening out. But the second piece is strong communication, right? So if it's notifications for deliveries, appointments along those lines, and you as a consumer are expecting a delivery, the key is having flexibility related to the times and understanding that the ETAs are likely going to be a couple of days longer, and that you'll need to work with the carrier on the notification times and have more flexibility on your appointments.
Yeah, so Clay, it would appear to me, and I'd like your opinion on this, that it is. You see all these technology advancements, et cetera. Is it more and more important for shippers to rely and build those relationships with those intermediaries, the managed transportation people, the brokers, so to speak?
It certainly is, in terms of being able to manage the transaction and gain greater visibility to that transaction, especially as you start to look at a more diverse network. So as a shipper,
Yeah.
you may have connectivity with one or two carriers, but as you look to widen your quiver of carriers and bring in more providers, having an intermediary in place is going to speed that implementation and provide you with a more seamless, perhaps frictionless transaction with your providers.
Like, if you were a shipper, if you were an intermediary or a carrier in this market, what is the one thing one piece of advice that you would give them going into Q3 and then into the back half of 2021, just overall?
You know, the biggest piece of advice is be flexible, and be adaptable. If the one thing we've learned over the last year is to kind of expect the unexpected. It's been very hard to predict exactly what the market is going to do, and you've got to be flexible and have the ability to react to multiple scenarios, and not come into a season where you think you've got a script written and things are going to exactly go that way.
Also, use your resources, right? Like everything.
That's exactly what I was going to
There's
say.
so much that's out there. You got to find it, you got to source it, and then you got to use it.
Yeah, I love the question. I love the answer, Clay. I mean, I would sum it up just saying, hey, quit pretending you know everything and get some help, because there's a lot of really good advice out there, and there's a lot of transparent and great data out there, and you need the help, because you've got to be able to react and proactively look at what's going on.
Yeah. The other thing I'd add, leverage your relationships. It's
Yeah.
a market where relationships are really going to matter.
Absolutely right. Clay, if people want to find a little bit more out about Transportation Insight, maybe leverage a relationship with you guys, where should they go and who should they contact?
Yeah, go to www.t-insight.com and follow the contact us link, and we'd love to speak with them.
Great.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much, Clay. You have a great holiday weekend, my friend.
All right. You all have a great, safe holiday weekend as well. Thank you very much.
We will do it.
Thanks, Clay. Great advice there, right? If you aren't leveraging your people overall, like, we always talk about being people first, especially in times of tight capacity like this. If you don't have a relationship with the people you're working with, you're not going to be able to get what you want.
And all of your vendors, your suppliers, your carriers, your intermediaries, et cetera. You need that collaboration across all modes and across all verticals.